The greatest thing about the estimated seller's cost is you get to do one because you got an offer.
Very true. Very true.
And I tell you what, a lot of people do. It just it really depends on your listing presentation. You see, there's 4 columns there, and that's so you can show different scenarios of what what they're gonna. Do you want to come here? And
yeah, I'm thinking I better move over there.
Like a range of.
Yeah, just gonna so it gives them a range of possibilities. Okay, what they're gonna do. Now, I never did when we typically would agree upon a price, and just stick one in there and say, okay, this is what's going to happen, because they don't want to hear what's going to happen outside the fact that you're going to sell their house for the price that they're listening for. But there's a lot of all this will be dictated about on how your listing appointment goes and what kind of relationship you have with this person. Typically in the first time you've ever come across a client, you never outside of prospecting with a guy, you've never really known him that much. So there's all those different circumstances will kind of dictate if you do all 4. But typically what you do is says, okay, you're sitting there and you're negotiating with the guy, what the price is supposed to be. As a professional, you should know. I mean, you look at the comps and everything's going to sell like in a typical neighborhood. Everything sells within a certain price per square foot range. And on the low end, it's going to be, not as good condition or not as good a lot or whatever. And on the top end, it's going to be great condition, like the perfect house in my neighborhood. And everything else falls in between. And once you get out there, you get something that is unusual. Either it's distressed or somebody's paying too much and it's probably not going to price. So you can go and you look at the comps so you can know exactly, but I'm telling you, your customer's not. And he's going to think what's typically happens in a listing appointment.
You go with what they say.
No.
But I've got one like that. I mean, I know what it's worth, but they're telling me that's.
Yeah. Almost all the time, people believe their house is worth more than the guy next door. Well, just typically that's what is going to happen. Oh, we got tile in the family room, and they don't. Yeah. Well, some people don't like tile. Some people don't want tile. So that's typically what's going to happen. And also, what really dictates how much you do this is the market, because right now the market is so hot and things are selling. Days on the market is so short. I mean, really, you put a price on it, and if that's good, it's going to sell immediately. But in your looser markets, you typically go, okay, you might have a point. Your house, you might get an offer like this. What we'll do is, why don't we put it on the house and see how our activity is going to go, okay? And if we don't get any showings or whatnot, we'll probably need to adjust our price to this price after 30 days. So then you go doom, and then show them what you're going to proceed at this right here, what the proceeds will be. Anyway, that's why you got the 4-column deal. And I'm not really sure where they got this form, because I've seen them a bunch of different ways. But okay, what we'll do is we start off with a sales price. This is pretty much self-explanatory. Less the first mortgage and less the second mortgage. Okay. So what you ought to do when you go ahead and list a house is go ahead and do the title work on the house. The title company will do it for free. Most title companies will go ahead and do the title work for free before it even closes. Now what that does is that does a kind of discovery thing on if there's any liens on the house or if there's any second mortgages. You'd be surprised how many people.
How do you find out where their title company is?
You decide that.
Oh, I can just
Yeah.
randomly call the title
Yeah, any
company?
title company you have a relationship with, you know, as you're going through and developing your career, you should be already developing relationships with, you know, title companies as you work with them. I mean, I always had my favorite title company, and typically the seller's going to be, he's going to be responsible for selecting a title company, unless it's written in the contract, you know, otherwise. And they'd have to agree upon that. But go ahead and kind of do, and we'll have title people all the time come to our sales meetings, you know, so these are kind of questions you might want to have with them and kind of talk to them, you know, before you have a bunch of closings you don't know, you know. And then we got people up here, Reline Title. They're real good. I've used her forever and ever and ever when I used to sell. But this will get a lot of your, you know, tax liens. They'll do title work. Tax liens will come up. Any mortgages. You'd be surprised how many people don't even know they have a second mortgage. And there's all things like people go out and buy air conditioning systems, okay, and that is a lien, like, and they won't pay for it, but it's attached to the house. So, like Alabama Power, they finance outside units, air conditioning systems, and they actually put a lien on your house, you know, until that thing's paid off. Okay, so those little things will come up, you know, if you don't want them popping up, you know, a week before closing. That kind of shuts it down. So you subtract the mortgages and any other liens from the sales price, and that'll give you their equity in the house. The costs associated with the closing, and of course the brokerage fee, that's the one we really like. 6% to Keller Williams. I don't really know what a compliance fee is. I think that's some realtors call, you know, they charge an additional fee in addition to the commission. We don't do that. Owner's title insurance policy. This person you develop a relationship with, the title company, they'll have a rate sheet, okay, and it's based on price of house. And who could give us an example? Jim, do you know the approximate owner's title insurance cost for $200,000 house?
No, I don't.
You don't? Didn't you just sell your house?
That was a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Hey Carson.
Huh?
Wendy here.
Hey,
On a $200,000, it'd be about $587.50.
okay. Okay, and that's, so what you do is just kind of take that price and figure out what that percentage is. I mean, it's been so long since I looked at a rate sheet, I can't remember what the cost
No,
were.
I just have several rate sheets from title
Yeah.
insurance companies
Yeah.
that I've shopped around and got it from.
Right. So that title person that you develop, or well, I always just ask them for a rate sheet, and they're all pretty comparable. There's not a lot of difference. Like in my experience, maybe you know something different, Wendy, but they're all approximately about the same. So it's not real expensive. Deed preparation, I don't know. That used to be about $65. What is it? Cindy? Do you know, Wendy? Deed prep, that's about $65.
Deed prep is $1 per thousand. No. Let's see. It's about $75.
Yeah. And that's what that's what you pay the attorney to draw up the deed. Pest inspection report, I forget, was that $175 or so?
Is that paid to the termite company? Or?
Yeah. Well, the great thing is like all this stuff is dispersed at the closing, okay? So you're not responsible for writing checks to all these, like the title company takes care of that. They cut all the checks and pay all these fees. And a termite contract fee, that'll vary from termite company. you know. What you need to do is when you list a house, you need to figure out if they got a termite contract on the house, and it might be helpful to, most likely they're not going to know if it's transferable or not. Some termite contracts are. There used to be some that you could transfer. Again, it's been a long time. I don't know if things have stayed the same, but we typically do a seller's disclosure, and they're going to ask those type of questions as you go through that seller's disclosure. Do you have a termite contract on the house? I mean, in our area, most all buyers are going to probably ask for a termite contract. I mean, it's kind of rare if they don't. So
I've got one that's asking for a wood infestation report.
Yeah.
And a bond. Does the termite company come out and give you both?
Yeah, they can do both.
I mean, because the seller's gonna go ahead and already pay for this, so I wouldn't need to, or just disclose it.
Well, the wood infestation report is something that they ask for in the contract. Okay, so they come out and they look at it, you know, the house before it closes to see if there's any, you know, damage or if there's any infestation. And that WR, what is it called? WR1 or something like that. And that's good for 90 days. And if they find, you know, that particular company that performs that, most of those is worth 90 days. And if the termites show up or whatever within that 90-day period, they'll come out and treat it. But anyway, it's just actually, some mortgage companies absolutely require that one of those things be done. You know, obviously they don't want to put a mortgage on a house that's got termite damage. But most of the companies that do these little WR1s where they come out, and you'll see, have you seen where they draw the graph and the graph of the house? And if there's infestation, they'll mark an X. Yeah,
That's
then
considered the
infestation right
report.
there. Yeah,
They
that's
want-
the little report. And that's the report that's shown to the buyer. And it's most likely the lender's also going to look at it too. And if there is infestation or if there's been past infestation, a lot of time the mortgage companies will require a structural inspection. So you want to get that as quickly as possible. You know, try to, you know, after their mortgage is approved and all that kind of stuff, you need to go ahead and order to make sure your title company orders all that stuff.
That's where I messed up. We've got a buyer, but I'm waiting on reports from the termite company.
Yeah. You know, when they start, when it gets to a point where they're asking for structural inspection docs, you know, you're probably pushing off your closing or whatever, unless you know, get somebody out there real quick. There are some additional costs associated with a buyer that gets FHA or VA. All those, the assignment fee, underwriting. See, a VA can ask you to pay all their closing costs associated with the purchase. They can get in on a loan with zero. They don't have to make a down payment, and their closing costs can be paid by the seller. So a lot of these costs right there are all associated with his side of the transaction because you agreed to pay them. FHA the same way, but they have a limit on the closing cost of the buyer that the seller can pay on the buyer's behalf. So those are all things, you know, associated with it. So what I would do is work closely with your lender, and you know, if these costs are going to be a part of the transaction. Of course, you don't know, but what you need to go ahead and do is just to make the assumption that these costs are going to be incurred, so you can make sure that, you know, whatever his net's going to be is going to, you know, you don't want to show a guy a number that's going to be less than what could actually happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Make sure you consider those costs. You know, might say, okay, there is a possibility that somebody might buy your house VA, So go ahead and list those costs associated with the VA.
So it's better to do a lower estimated closing cost.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if it's
Yeah.
more than they're
Yeah.
not.
You know what I'm saying? Look, well, look, you didn't tell me about this. Well, yeah. The miscellaneous cost.
Hi.
The survey, a lot of times in a subdivision setting, a buyer might just take the existing survey instead of having a new one done. They might write into the contract, seller to provide the existing survey on the house.
Would that
Survey.
save them a cost?
Huh?
Would that save them a cost? If they just took the existing.
Well,
survey?
it's going to save the seller.
Oh,
It's going to save the seller a cost, because I don't know what they are. They're probably about $450.
We just did
When
one
did
that
you
was
just tell me?
500.
500. Okay. Well, they were about 250 when I was in the business, so that's probably about right. But when you get out in the county and you're buying large pieces of land, you probably want to go ahead and get a survey done.
But you can't really do any of that till you get the buyer.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't,
Well, you can go if it just depends. If the piece of property and the boundaries are questionable, which it could be possible. Say you bought the house without a survey, or which would have been a bad deal. But say you bought the house 15 years ago and you relied on where the guy told you. But the thing about old surveys is the equipment was not as accurate as it is now. And there's actually mistakes just because the technology's improved so much now. They can just be so much more accurate that they can actually be different than what was shown, or they realize, and I've seen that happen. So I don't know. If you're selling 40 acres, you might want to go ahead and you're going to sell it, you might as well go ahead and get a survey, because somebody's not going to buy 40 acres unless they have a survey. And most of the time, a buyer is going to ask the seller, to provide that.
That's not required for a condo though, correct?
No, not to my knowledge, and I don't know why they turned this down to 68 degrees. Why do y'all do that? Possible repairs, that's something you probably walk through the private. I'm sorry, Wendy, did you ask a question? Or who did somebody ask a question?
It was me. I just was talking about the only way you'd have to do is if it was a property, like a house with property, but not
Oh,
condo.
not a
That's
condo.
not necessary.
No, you wouldn't do one on a condo, not unless you bought the whole unit,
The whole thing.
the whole building. Yeah, no, I don't know why you do a survey on a condo. But possible repairs, that's something you would probably do. You'd find out as you went through and kind of look through the house. Say you went and was listing a house that the roof was questionable, because of age. I don't know. Insurance is such a sketchy thing now about roofs. I mean, some insurance companies won't insure a house with a roof over a certain age. Isn't that the deal? I know that used to be an issue. Home warranty, go ahead and just price a home warranty out. Most likely on all purchases, you're going to see somebody request a home warranty. And this is a good way to end up not paying for a home warranty. Because we have a lot of realtors that pay for home warranties. But so if you go ahead and stick it in there and say that's probably what you're going to have to pay, then the seller doesn't look to the agent to pay for that. And buyer costs, paid by the seller. Okay, you guys with experience, are you seeing most offers that come in with that? I know on almost all offers coming on houses when I'm in the market, they were always asking for closing costs. Some in some amount.
Good luck getting a seller to pay your closing costs right now.
Really? Well, I would think, okay, we'll give you full price. I mean, I always saw that, we'll pay full price if you'll pay $1,500 at closing costs. I mean, I'm not all of it.
It's just so competitive right now that if you're in a multiple offer situation, I would never ask.
So that's pretty much the seller's cost. All that right there. And you'll see some funky things on offers, and make sure they read all the fine print. But this is what they're interested in, right? This is seller's approach, proceeds at closing. Y'all have any questions or comments?
What about property taxes?
Yeah, you will have to pay your prorated, property taxes. In Baldwin County, is the tax year in Baldwin County ended October 31st? Is that?
First, I thought.
Or October 1st? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you say you close, September. Like the seller will be responsible for the property taxes through September. So what the title company collects that, right, from the seller, and they'll pay the property taxes, and then the buyer is going to be responsible for that October. Yeah. So the seller will be responsible.
You said property taxes are not October 1st in Baldwin.
Yeah. I think that's how it is in Mobile County too.
Where does it go on?
What happens is this really what it's going to be. It's going to be a part of the mortgage, the mortgage payoff, because what they're doing is you're making mortgage payments and they're escrowing your taxes is what they're doing. Okay. So you're really not going to see it on here. That'll be part of the payoff in your mortgage. Now, some people do pay their own property taxes. That's not common, but there are some people that pay their own property taxes, or maybe they don't have a mortgage, and they pay them out of their pocket, October 1st or whatever. So that would be part of this. But most people have a mortgage, except Jim. Jim probably don't have a mortgage. And so the property taxes are going to be taken care of by the mortgage company. So you won't see it on here.
And then as for estimated repairs, is that kind of something that as you're going through the under contract period, you kind of figure that out as you're talking with the seller, going and viewing the house?
And that's something you'll get more experience as you go through, because I just got to the point where I'm going like, you probably don't need to do something with this carpet. So, I just expect another $1,500 or whatever to do this room or whatever, those kind of things you'll see. most of the time I would be going, why don't you just go ahead and do this, you know, before we even go on the market. It'll sell a lot faster. That's always the case. You always hear, like the seller will always, well, look, if they want us to take care of that, we'll take care of it. And it typically prolongs your time on the market. All right, my